When we find people in economic need, one of the key questions we have to answer is what's got them in those situations, because that's going to really dictate the right kind of response. So if a person or a community has had some kind of crisis happen to them, and a crisis is something primarily beyond their controls, whether it's a natural disaster, a spousal abuse situation where you've had a major medical emergency, those kinds of things, that's a crisis. And so you want to respond quickly with something that's called relief. And in relief, it's basically a provider-receiver model. You have, they don't have, they have the need, and you give it to them. And the key thing about relief, it needs to be quick and it needs to be temporary. So if you find yourself in this kind of provider-receiver model over very long periods of time, typically that means something's wrong. You haven't moved on. And the moving on is to something that's called rehabilitation. And relief and rehabilitation really go together. Rehabilitation is getting people kind of back on their feet. And so if you've had the hurricane come through and you've lost your home, you've got temporary shelter, that's relief. Getting the house rebuilt, that's rehabilitation. But the real issue that separates relief and rehab is this issue of what if the person is really primarily, or the community is really a key factor in the causality of the problem. Well, in that situation, then you want to do development. And development is basically walking alongside people as they try to solve their problems. Now, you could be the initiator of change. You could come in and try to say, look, let's look at these possibilities, let's look at these issues. But ultimately, development can only be done not with just a person in need, but a person who's receptive to change. And how you know a person's receptive to change is basically they're going to own the fact that they've helped create the situation and they need to be a key player in solving the problem. So let's remember, relief is kind of stop that downward spiral that's occurring. You're trying to stop that downward spiral. Rehab is trying to get them back to where they were before the crisis. But development is really moving further along. And the key issue there is you're going to move from being a provider-receiver to much more of a partner in the process.